Good morning. All right, here we go. There's a lot on the plate for today. Okay, I'm going to just jump right into this because, it's Monday and it's the body shop, and I know you guys have a lot to do. So let's get talking about it. Okay, I get a lot of questions. Let's just say they're not even really questions. I get a lot of angry feedback from a lot of people wanting to know why I'm so harsh or critical or fixated on the scanning issues and some things that are going on. And really, here's the thing. So there was this article in Forbes that came out this summer. Recently, here this week or this past week, this article showed up. Some of the data from it. Detroit Free Press took this meeting that had taken place up in Traverse City, Michigan during the summer and kind of put an article out on kind of what's going on with software. Well, here's the thing. Right now in 2023, 15% of vehicle recalls were representative of software issues. So in other words, software caused 15% of the recalls in 2023. In 2024, they have been 42% of the recalls that have been issued from the OEs. So software is a problem. Whether that's what's causing some of the uptick that we see recently in lawsuits being filed around ADAS related crashes and death claims, et cetera, or whether that was just going to happen anyway because now the vehicles have or are equipped with these safety systems. But there are more and more software problems. Well, software is what the scan tool is talking to. So that scan tool, when you pre-scan, when you post-scan, when you initialize a module, when you calibrate something, that's all software. It's algorithms, it's data, it's ones and it's zeros, and what makes the car work. So when I worry about whether a shop is or isn't using OEM tooling or targeting, it's because this is also going on in the background. So I'm super glad that Repair Driven News shared this. I think more and more body shops are to be watching the articles, whether that's Automotive News. John Huter, who used to be the editor of Repair Driven News, is now with Automotive News in Detroit. Whether you're watching that, whether you're watching Forbes, whether you are signed up for NASHTA's recall list, so you can go in the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, and you can sign up for like daily recall emails that are coming out from the OEs. But there's a lot happening around OE software and the consequences of OE software and how are we going to get through all of these software updates? If you've got a phone or if you've got a laptop, you know that you leave work some days and you come back and your phone took an update overnight or your computer took an update or you tried to log on this morning and you had to wait 10, 20 minutes because an update had to go through. Software is software. Just because it's in your car doesn't mean it's any different than what's, in other electronic devices that we rely on. So pay attention. Don't let some vendor talk you into downgrading your services. In other words, not using OE, going with something that feels faster or feels like it's easier or whatever. Because these are the consequences, right? These vehicles are already out there with already outstanding issues. We get them in a collision repair environment, which means they've been through another issue, right? And now we've got to be the ones to decide, what's going to happen to this I guess what's going to happen to this vehicle now that it's got to be repaired, and are we repairing it correctly, and did we calibrate it properly, and did we check all the software? And just because there's no light on the dash doesn't mean there's not a problem. All of these things that are swirling around. I don't think our insurers right now understand what scanning is and isn't and why we do it. And I don't think we really even understand it. But I do know this. I would rather do it and do it the right way and know that when or if a lawsuit happens or there's a problem or whatever, that I did everything I could. So go on Forbes, read the complete article from the symposium that happened in Traverse, Michigan. Read the article from Repair Driven News, the Detroit Press study. Detroit Press does require a subscription. So if you want to go read that one, I think it's like $1 a month. It's not a lot to be a member of the Detroit Press. And they do really, really great articles. So I do highly, highly encourage it. That you look into those. So what's next out there that's been going on right now? Let's see what we can find. All right. So, you saw 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the state of New York fined a couple of insurers over privacy issues. And now you have the Texas Attorney General going after Allstate over privacy issues, data mining, what you're doing with that data. I'll be interested to see how this one goes because if you've taken our policy class, like how to read an auto insurance policy, one of the auto policies that we read is Allstate's policy. And in the Allstate policy, there's a section that says you agree that we can use your information, sell it to third parties. And I thought when that first hit the policy, I was kind of like blown away that that's in the policy. And I don't think a lot of policyholders understand that little paragraph is there. Haven't seen it in any other policies lately, but if anybody sees that data in another insurance policy that says it gives them the right to sell and use your data, please send that to me. I'd love to see that as well. But it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. And the reason I am talking about it is I got another call this week. All right, so data privacy. I think we all understand that we have to be protective of consumers' private information, not letting that get out. There's some things we don't have control over as repairs. We've been told in our user agreements with our software that we basically that data gets sent up and it's out of our control. It's not even our data anymore. It belongs to the software provider we've been using. And so controlling data and what happens to it, really, really difficult for shops. But in this case, the market is not great right now. Claim count, claim volume is down. Repairable vehicles available out of that claim count down one because total losses continue to increase, but also because consumers probably right now, fourth quarter, and then the economy situation aren't necessarily repairing everything that's getting damaged. Some people aren't reporting claims because they're afraid to make a claim. They're afraid to get canceled and some other stuff. So shops are looking at ways to expand and grow their business. And how do we get and attract more customers? You cannot, and I know that there are people that will sell you software. People will sell you anything. In fact, I can go on Amazon and buy stuff that's kind of technically illegal to own when it comes to EFI card readers and a lot of other things. But you can't text people anything you want to text them. You can receive permission to text them while their vehicle is under care and service. And the restrictions on that, according to the FTC, is that you can message them about the service. But when the service is over and they no longer have a vehicle in your shop, you can't just send them text messages randomly about your business or automotive tips to keep your car safe in the wintertime or come in for $10 off a car wash or whatever. That's illegal. So one of the biggest cases you've heard us talk about it, there was another company probably 10, 12 years ago that was telling body shops you should just, hey, you've got all this customer and you have all this customer information and you should be text messaging customers and marketing. And we were like, no, the Jiffy Lube case. But now there are more recent cases that are specifically at the automotive industry. Right. So mostly dealerships. 2020, Mercedes-Benz of Los Angeles lost a big case. Nissan corporately settled one. They were text messaging customers. That one cost them a couple $1 million. But please, body shops, I understand that all of us right now are trying to find new business, trying to find customers, trying to grow any way we can. And some of us not even grow. We're just trying to, stay open, keep the doors open, keep the employees employed and keep muddling along, hoping 2025 is going to have a bounce back. And claim volume and flow and all that stuff will pick up. But you absolutely cannot just text message people because you happen to have their text message numbers. Some people that are your friends won't mind, but some people that maybe aren't your friend will mind. So just make sure whatever you're doing, people have opted in and have agreed to receive those messages and that you allow them an opt out. So if you are going to send something, they need to be able the ability to hit stop. And that goes for anything. So if you're using a service, don't just assume because a software company sells you something or a marketing company, or whether it's the body shop helper crap or whatever it is. Don't just assume, well, it must be okay because they're selling it to me, right? People can sell things and how you use them is completely your responsibility versus the person that's selling it to you. So visit with your state, visit with a local attorney, Find out what you can and can't do, and then ensure whatever you're doing is in compliance with that. There is something to be said that in some cases we can't exactly send post-service surveys if we go back and we look at what the Jiffy Lube case said. So just remember, text messaging is also governed on the do not call list and lots of other things that are out there. Be very, very careful. And speaking of careful, the next thing that we probably need to talk about. All right. A couple of weeks ago, also, we talked about the Transparency Act, and that shops by January 1, if you've met the criteria, which it's really hard not to meet the criteria, had to fill out the corporate transparency forms and report. And it's a way the government's trying to figure out how to get rid of all these like shell companies, like who really owns what. Then you saw everybody across the internet post that Texas had filed an injunction, and no longer did you have to comply with the January 1 deadline. That's true. There is an injunction. However, you need to be aware the federal government has filed an appeal. So as of Friday, there was an appeal that would kick it all back into play. So stop getting your advice. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, because if you're getting your advice on social media from me, then I don't. Anyway, okay. Stop taking your advice from memes or graphics shared across the internet, specifically when it comes to like federal compliance and laws and taxes and those kind of things. So even trust but verify. So like we told you, Rachel, who does all of our business and finance, her advice was, here's the law, here's the deadline. You need to go meet with your CPA or whoever does your books, and you need to have them advise you. Please understand that right now it is true that nobody has to meet the compliance. The government is filing the appeal, but if they are granted this appeal, then it's possibly all back on. So don't be waiting thinking that you don't have to worry about this anymore. So please go visit with your CPA, go visit with your accountant, make sure that you understand everything. Make sure maybe you pre-prepare. So you don't have to turn them in, but maybe whatever it takes to get all of your stuff together, that you prepare so that if this appeal goes through and suddenly we're back on for a January 1 deadline, you're not scrambling anywhere. So just always trust but verify. You heard something online, somebody posted it, you no longer got to do this. Wait until your CPA tells you what you do or don't have to do. Maybe that might be a very valuable piece of information. I thought I would share a little bit on kind of a situation that happened 2 weeks ago. So last week I was not in the office. I was out doing inspections and shadowing, which was a positive week of shadowing. So sometimes these things don't go really well for me, particularly when I'm working in dealerships. And it was great. I had a great experience at a shop for a whole entire week, and I'm like feeling really refreshed from it. But so those that know us well know that a lot of our clients are still insurance companies and large MSOs, and we do lots of coaching and quiet reviews and audits and acquisition advice and all kinds of things. So I had a conversation with one of my insurance clients, and we do this thing a lot, particularly for what we would call multi-line or it's the best way of how these guys want to refer to them, but these are what we would consider upper level claims, right? And thinking through them, like that thought process of thinking through claims. And I thought this one was really interesting because it involved a principle of psychology that I love, which is cognitive reframing. And we talk about this in the insurance world all the time, because mostly what we're dealing with are difficult situations. We never get to deliver the answer that people want to hear half the time. So how do we take the negative and reframe it and hopefully have a positive experience? Well, the official definition of cognitive reframing is it examining and challenging your thought patterns to gain different perspectives in situations, ideas, and relationships. So all of us bring to the table a bias of the way we feel about things. Some of you bring to this video every Monday morning a bias on how you feel about me. I could tell you the sky's blue and you still want to argue with me. It's gray today, or it's not raining, or whatever. That's the same as when I have insurance companies or insurance adjusters and body shops. We both come to the table with a different view of the same thing. And that viewpoint or bias is what serves us for how we think about the other person at the table. So if I come to the table with a negative bias, no matter what that person does, I'm gonna see everything they do from a negative perspective. So in this case, we were discussing DRPs and DRPs charging for pre-wash, post-wash, cleanup fees, etc. In this particular case, the DRP was not charging for in this market was not charging for pre-washes, but they were charging for final details and delivery. And the general opinion of the adjusters in the group was that was just way too much money, highway robbery. They shouldn't be allowed to charge for it. So here's how we went through the cognitive framing process. And sometimes this is really helpful for shops to, if you can do this when you have an insurance person on the phone as well. So the first step was, we asked them, should this be free? Do you feel like cleanup? We talked about what happens to a car during the repair process. We showed some pictures. They agreed that they had seen those pictures of in process and what it looked like. Do we believe that this process should be free? That the technician, we didn't say the shop, notice we don't say the shop, the technician who is performing the work, who's trying to make a living, do we believe that this is time out of their day, that they should perform these tasks with no compensation? The unanimous decision was no. I thought, wow, step one, we're doing pretty good, right? Everybody believes that there should be compensation. Okay, well, what about the $75, which is what this particular market group was charging? What about the $75 do you not think is fair? So we allowed them to talk. And most of them were like, well, I get my car washed at the car wash thing around the street and I drive right through it and it's $15. Okay, that's fair. And they all kind of went around. It's like, well, we're gonna have to take the automatic car wash off the table because freshly refinished vehicles, I can't run through an automatic car wash, so we're gonna be hand washing. Anybody hand washed their car lately? A couple of them, yeah, occasionally I do it. Great. So what's involved in the detail? Well, we agreed that it was an exterior and an interior, more than just a quick vacuum, dust and everything. We're gonna have to wipe down all the interior surfaces and everything. So we took them through a market, kind of a market walkthrough of this. And here's what they came up with. So they agreed that probably the exterior hand washing, by the time you washed all the panels and the wheels and the tires and all that, it was probably about a half an hour worth of labor. Now, I was a little shocked that this particular market is $70 an hour. If we had to wipe down the interior, we had to vacuum, we had to do everything, that was probably a half an hour also. Now, that was a more interesting discussion because several of them, their point of reference of that was watching it get done at a car wash where they drop it off at. And so we had this discussion about this conveyor belt thing that you park your car and it's going down this conveyor belt and there's like 5 or 6 people working on the cars. And they're like, well, I'm there about 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, but that's 5 or 6 people touching one car for 20 minutes. I mean, so let's think about what one person would be. Then we talked about what materials might be. And they came up with $10 for materials, and that was everything. We did glass cleaner and rags and soap and all of those things. And then we asked them, okay, well, we can't do this for free, so what would be a reasonable profit? And they decided that their $20 is a reasonable profit. Well, when we did the math, it came up to about $100, right? So that $75 somehow suddenly didn't feel so bad. And now all of them felt way more comfortable paying the $75. So originally when the shop started submitting this as part of their deal, everybody believed that this was just a fluff charge, just trying to get some extra money. This was too much. They were, reaching a little far. And then as we broke it down, they realized that's a pretty good bargain. I mean, my first words when they told me the shop's charging $75 for detail, I was like, well, they're about $200 short. So like, let me call them and let's see if we can up their fee a little bit. But just going through that reframing process, a great conversation with the adjusters. I love it when they're open-minded. I love it when they tell me what they don't like. I love it when they tell me what they think the shop's stealing, overcharging, etc. That's not a bad thing when people express those things. We call it labeling in the negotiation class as well. When we discuss cognitive reframing, is that sometimes you just got to get it out. As soon as you say it, you feel better. So sometimes when you call me a thief, you feel better after you said it. Now we can negotiate, but until you do, we're just, we're not even on the same page. Cognitive reframing is a great technique for you to use with anybody that you are negotiating with. 20 years ago, Larry used to use this one a lot. And I would laugh because he would catch a lot of my adjusters with it. He'd take an estimate, and this is the, you think about the estimate, pretty much all your labor times and everything are on that right-hand part of the page. Larry would rip that right-hand part of the page off. Actually, that's a little, that's nice. He would take a big knife out and he would cut that side of the estimate off and basically hand it to the adjuster. And the adjuster would be like, well, what is this? And he's like, it's the estimate. And they would be like, there's no times on here. Because I know I'm comfortable with you. Just go out there and look at the car. Here's a pen. You write down next to it what you think each of those steps, how long you think it's going to take me. Right. And then you come back in, we'll total it up and we'll see where you're at. What was interesting is like 9 times out of 10, by the time that adjuster came back in with their little pencil notes, they were actually paying him more than what he would have been asking for. Sure, we were still going to argue labor rate, but as far as like the hourly allotments for things. And so when we took away the thing that was impeding their ability to just think about what was in front of them, which is those lines on the right-hand side, and they had to think through it and they reframed that in their mind. They weren't there looking at, this is too much money. He's wanting too much money, because they would immediately go to that last page. How that would work out for them, which was always really interesting for them to come back and kind of get caught in that thing. So it's a great way to negotiate. So if you think about it in the future, look for that, which brings me to the next thing. We will be the C20 class for this month. I will be recording it. It will not be a live class, but I will host a live discussion after the first of the year for shops that have watched it to come back. The title of the class is called Ben Franklin's Blacklist. There's some psychology there for that, and we'll talk about that why. But I have a lot of shops that are getting called and said, we're on a list. We've been blacklisted. Or I get on the phone with some adjuster and they say, we're on some list somewhere. So if you're on a list, or you think you're on a list, or you don't want to be on a list, but how do you get off that list? So what does it mean to be blacklisted? Or whatever nicer way we want to say that you're on the naughty list for Christmas, right? What does it take to get off that? And how do you use what you currently have without changing your model? It doesn't mean we just start giving in and not charging customers or doing whatever. How can you maintain the business model you have now and get off the list? And we're going to talk about that in our C20 class. So definitely think about joining us for that one. It's going to be a really interesting one. So we will see you next Monday. It'll be the holiday week. I will do a Christmas list, and part of that one you're not going to want to miss, because lately I've been accused of, and if this was true, I'd be so rich, that people can pay their way to Collision Hub for us to promote their products and services. Yeah, it's kind of not how it works. Like I said, if that was the case, I'd have a lot more money. And most people can't really, if people could pay me to say what they wanted me to say, I definitely wouldn't say half the shit I say. So I've just decided that I'm going to do my own little Christmas list next week, and I'm going to talk about all of the companies that I think you should be working with as a body shop, and I'm going to name all the companies that I don't think you should be working with at all as a body shop. So I'm going to have maybe my own naughty and nice list for Christmas at next week's Coffee Talk. So we'll see you there. And if you have any questions or problems, you can always reach Melanie, because I am impossible to get a hold of. Melanie is the brains of our department. So shoot her an email. Shoot her a DM on one of the social media channels, and she will get with you. Thanks, guys. See you soon.